Welcome to this very special conversation with Niranjan Hiranandani. Mr. Hiranandani, thank you so much for speaking with us again.
My pleasure, Faye.
It's been about 6 months since we did our last interview, and a lot has changed since then. The industry is going through massive changes, and like we were talking about before we began the interview, some of the biggest names of Mumbai's real estate market who've been around for a while are in trouble at this point, whether it's financially, whether it's in delays, whether it's in a crisis of reputation. How are you reading this market? Is it a market where we're going to see some of the larger names of Mumbai sort of fade into the background?
I think it's nothing to do with Mumbai, it's nothing to do with Maharashtra, it's nothing to do with anything except it's the whole of India. So that story doesn't fix out only for Mumbai. I can see this story happening across the board. And the change which is really taking place is to the fact that you may be small, you may be medium, you may be big, but you could be in trouble because you're over leveraged or your projects haven't worked out the way you wanted it to work. So the difference is that you are going to be in great difficulty if you haven't produced the right product, and or you have too much debt on your books, and or you are not in the proper policy making position of the government, which may not be your fault at all.
So where do you see this play? How do you see this play out? Because we're looking at a regulator coming in Maharashtra faster than any other state, but regulators will come in across the country. There will be that very, very painful escrow 70% that everybody will have to follow. So for an industry that's already in pain right now, how will this play out over the next 1 year?
I think you're absolutely correct. You already have over-leveraged companies, as we discussed, and on top of it, you get the regulator, which impounds 70% of the money that is coming in. It means there's going to be a liquidity crisis for most of the companies. Those companies which do not plan themselves to get enough capital into their books or do not get enough arrangement with their banks to face the situation with the regulator coming in and the impounding of the 70% is going to be in great difficulty. So ABC companies may be in difficulty today, as you have mentioned. Tomorrow, CDE companies are going to be in difficulty because of lack of liquidity. So it's not a story that you can wonder about. It's going to happen for sure. So it's not something which is not expected. It is expected, and I think government also understands the situation that many more companies will be in difficulty.
So let's just focus on that escrow account, because I do believe that Naredco made a representation to the state government saying it's just too high and it's going to be very, very difficult. Do you believe it is too high? Do you believe the government should reconsider? And is there room from within the bill to reconsider or to make any changes on the state level?
See, the situation is very simple. If you put money into the escrow account, you can use it for X building only. Normally what does happen is that you get more surplus funds in A building or A phase of the project, and it is used not only for that phase of the project but by other phases of other projects wherein the liquidity crisis is more severe. So the entire project or different phases of the project can be constructed. However, because certain builders did abuse this position by souping out the monies and using it only to buy land and not really complete the buildings, the government in its wisdom decided that they needed to create this escrow account. 70% is obviously too high a figure at this point of time to impound the money, because the company is required for so many other purposes, including completion of earlier buildings which need to be completed, which may be deficit because of cost escalation, because of delays which have taken place, not within the control of the developers themselves. So you need to have that kind of flexibility in order to meet the objectives of completion of projects of the company.
I'm going to go back to what we were talking about, the tough times for the industry. How is your company, how is Hiranandani preparing for the next 12
Fortunately,
months?
as at present, we are doing extremely well. In fact, the last 12 months, our company has shown extraordinarily good results. We have had very good sales as far as this is concerned, both on the residential and the commercial side. So as a company as a whole, probably one of our best years. So,
Is your sale, your Powai asset sale to Brookfield, is that complete? Has the money exchanged hands? Is it done?
no, it is not. As I mentioned to you earlier, we are going through a restructuring process, which is partnership firms are now being converted into private limited companies. And until that doesn't get completed, which is a couple of months away, it's not going to happen.
But some of the analysts in the industry have, of course, said that the sale of something as marquee as your commercial assets in Powai is sort of an indication of difficult times. What's your response to that?
The answer is, of course, we want liquidity. So the answer is yes, we are looking for liquidity, of course. I'm not desperate. We have no debt which is unpaid. There's no interest which is not paid. And we have probably the lowest debt to asset ratio in the entire industry. So I don't think we are in a desperate situation to make these sales. So even if the sale takes place after 6 months, 12 months or 2 years, it doesn't make any difference to us in terms of our liquidity position for the projects is concerned. As far as the money is concerned in terms of receipts, until the restructuring is not completed, it's not going to come to us any which way. So both ways, we are very comfortable.
Do you believe that this was the right point, again, to sell marquee assets? It was sort of the jewel in the crown of Hiranandani, right? The commercial space in Powai. Would it have been of higher value further down the line when commercial REITs are actually active in
it's
things
like saying that I have a lovely suit, but I'll not have a lovely suit tomorrow. You will not believe that in 15 years, we accumulated 5 million square feet of assets, which we are talking about. In the next 2 years, we will accumulate another 5 million square feet of commercial assets. So it's like this suit is for this hearing or this interview, and after 6 months, I'll buy a new suit. So I'm going to have another set of 5 million square feet, which will be available in the market. And again, I may go into the market or retain it. So it's only about, at a particular point of time, you think it's marquee, it's not, because the next one is going to be even more marquee.
Where is the next one coming up?
It's already there, it's up, and you've already announced it, which is my TCS deal. We're doing 2 million, and we're planning to put up another 1 million there, and in Panvel, we are putting up 2 million. So we will do the highest amount of commercial building in my entire career in 1 year, which took me 15 years to do earlier. So we are growing only 15 times faster.
The commercial space in Panvel, who are you talking to right now? Who's showing interest?
We are not talking to anybody because we plan to complete it, make it ready, and then market it. We don't want to market it today because we would have to give it at a price point which I am not happy to give. So what we are planning to do is to complete these assets and sell it after that. One of the buildings will be ready this month, and the second one will be ready by October this year. So our marketing will only start by November this year, which means 100% completed 2 million square feet of assets will be put into the market only after it's 100% ready.
I know that the Panvel project has taken time to get off the ground, and you're personally also looking at pushing jobs into that space so that you can create a sort of ecosystem for the entire township.
You're letting out my secret.
Give us the update, because again, these are the Panvel project and the Chennai project are the ones we get the most emails about. So for our viewers, give us updates on progress on both of these projects.
Both projects have been progressing. We have, of course, had to restructure some of the issues in terms of the designs of all these buildings because the markets have definitely changed. So we're making different types of inputs into the marketplace and in the design of the buildings, which has taken a little bit of time. But I think just after the monsoon subsides a little bit, we will be starting about 1,500 apartments to construct simultaneously. So that will take care of the buildings which are already been sold, pre-sold, and also the buildings that we are now planning to sell. So I think we plan to construct about 2,000 apartments in the next 24 to 36 months, which I believe would be probably the largest quantity in the entire region.
Are you compensating the people who've been waiting on delays?
We've not been able to compensate anybody, but we plan to give them the apartments as planned in the next 2 years.
But MOFA, sort of calls for a compensation of close to 9%.
I have unfortunately taken this from the marketplace. I had to take it from the banks in a SURFACE action rather than doing it. So obviously the time frame which was given under the original agreement I couldn't honor because I took it much later. In fact, the buildings have just started. 2 buildings I have completed, incidentally out of 11, 9 or 11. I've completed. The other 2 are ongoing, and in the next 2 years we'll complete all of them.
We're talking about some of your future plans, and I'll get to the fact that you're dabbling with affordable housing now, which I'm very interested in. But I also know that other than Chennai, which is the market that you looked at, Ahmedabad is one of the markets that you're focusing on right now. Tell us what you're doing in Ahmedabad. I know it's commercial, but tell us what's happening exactly.
You'll be surprised to know that by the end of the year, the International Financial Center in Ahmedabad, Gift City, will be opened by us in our building called Signature. It's unprecedented. It's actually not so well known, but we will be all there and operational for opening during Vibrant Gujarat in January of 2017.
How many square feet will the building be?
That will be 400,000, 16-storied building, which we will complete in 13 months. The best part of it is that the institutions have now been given all the fiscal benefits that they asked for. Every possible tax is exempt except a minimum alternative tax of 9%. There is no other taxation whatsoever. So it's going to be fantastic, both for as a financial center, for the purposes of banks, for the stock market.
Right. No, but Gift City has been around for a while. It's a project that has a great blueprint, but somehow is never really translated to actual economics on the ground. Is it just the difference in the taxation within the SEZ and the IFC that will make the difference, or will you have to do more to get, like you've done in Powai and Thane, to get the economics sort of ticking for people to come and live there and work there and actually make it a city?
See, the intention of Gift City of Mr. Narendra Modi is absolutely fantastic, where you have residential, commercial, you have a school which is now operational, you have hotels where they'll serve liquor and stuff like that. So all these positive advantages are definitely there in creation of the city. The point is very simple, that how do we draw business into these kind of places?
Right.
That is where Mr. Narendra Modi has conceived the concept of the International Financial Center, which otherwise would have been Mumbai to start with, and probably one day Mumbai will also be a International Financial Center, but it will be number 2. The number 1 will be in Ahmedabad by January of 2017. Now the real issue is, how do we get this business over here? This business did not exist in India. The business was in Dubai, it was in London, it was in Singapore. Because of tax reasons, you couldn't do it. But a huge number of operators are actually desiring to bring this business into India. This is all given away to other people. Now you can sit in Ahmedabad, in Signature Building, in Gift City, in the Special Economic Zone, and do stockbroking and other business all over the world. You can do insurance, reinsurance all over the world. You can do commodity exchange everywhere all over the world, and that can be done in India. None of which was ever done in India because of taxation. They couldn't afford to do so. So what's the idea? The idea is to create a business, a center which will naturally drive business into Gift City. Automatically the residential side will also come up.
Yes, that was going to be my next question. If you're part of the plan from this stage, you obviously have larger plans for Ahmedabad going forward.
Well,
tell us what they are.
Well, I think Gift City is a much bigger environment. So land is no constraint. All we have to do is to see whether the economic activity and the residential activity can be married proportionately.
Right.
So over a period of time, the initiatives taken by Gift City, which is bringing the International Financial Center up front, getting all the regulations into place, including SEBI, including Finance Ministry, including RBI, all those regulations are already in place for the activity to be initiated. In fact, they've already started in the incubation center. But the secret is, if we can drive economic activity to persuade stockbrokers, insurance agents, financial center banks, shift their activity over here, and actually not shift, initiate.
But you're doing affordable housing now after an entire career in marquee luxury or upper middle income housing. Tell us what the plan is for affordable housing, and what will an affordable Hiranandani home seem like? What will it be?
We had a meeting with the municipal commissioner the other day, and he made a statement about saying that the land cost has become so high and all the other costings which are government rated costs in terms of additional FSI and taxes are so high that in a place like Mumbai nothing is less than 10,000 rupees a square foot, which obviously is not the category in which affordable housing can be created. We've therefore thought that it's the peripheral areas of Mumbai, outside Mumbai, maybe Mumbai region, Mumbai metropolitan regions and so on and so forth, is the places in which we can create affordable housing. Our idea basically is that if we can create in the 5,000 rupee range or 6,000 rupee range is what we really want to do. The second part of it is what we want to do, again, the municipal commissioner mentioned, is at construction cost can we deliver the goods, which means the land cost and infrastructure cost is zero, which is a physical impossibility. Now, that's where we are trying to work towards, to go to a place which is further away from the city, but actually we can get cost where the land cost will be only 10% of total cost. If that is the case, then we will be able to provide houses at the rate of about 4,000 or 3,800 to 4,000 rupees a square foot. We have not been able to even reach the position where we can do that. But our idea was to pick up pieces of pockets of land where we can do this range of housing prices in the perimetries of Mumbai.
One of the problems that we've been dealing with on the channel has been sort of the mismanagement of Mumbai as a city in terms of citizens calling us about roads that are not being managed properly, traffic jams that last 2-3 hours, mostly on the western side. On some level, do you think that maybe because it's a large city, but although I don't accept that as an excuse, at some level we're failing our citizens who work really hard, pay high taxes, the salaried people, the people who pay the property tax, the service tax, the VAT and everything else that gets added in if you're an urban Indian, that the basic services of clean air, clean water, public transport are not being given?
Yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct. Obviously, the government of the day has failed the city. Metro should have come 50 years ago. The Cross Harbour Bridge was planned 40 years ago. The kind of development which we have had in the past in terms of bad roads is pathetic. It's understandable, I mean, you could definitely make better roads. Now, obviously, the government has now stepped in to say at least 5 of these major projects will be taken up in the next 3 to 5 years. The Navi Mumbai Airport, the Cross Harbour Bridge, the metro connectivity, the coastal road and the Pinjal River project. If these 5 projects are put into force as they have announced, and Mr. Devendra Fadnavis is constantly talking about it every week and fortnight, and it's reported in the press, including his efforts to get environmental clearance, etc., which has happened, and the arrangement of the funding, which Mr. Narendra Modi arranged with the Japanese government, which is for the metro and the Cross Harbour Bridge. And of course, the coastal road is being funded by municipal corporations separately within its own budgets. If the combination of this takes off in the next few years, at least the transportation to all the peripheral areas will be taken from one. Yeah. But the second part, which you say, requires a change in governance, which is really an internal affair, which local authority will have to relook at it, state government will have to look about it. And I agree with you, it's pathetic. But we can only hope that with the vigilance of the media, the press and other things, bringing into focus these issues, I'm sure the government will really change its mind. But it appears that the intent is there, at least to take the macro projects which will help us. To be fair, 6
months ago when we did an interview in the Parking Provide, you said the same thing. You said these 5 projects will be key to where Mumbai goes as a city going forward. Since then, are you sort of satisfied with the kind of progress you're seeing? Or is it still a lot of intent in the Chief Minister's office that's not translating to what's happening on the ground?
Of course, we would have liked to have all these projects started last month, if not earlier. But the point is the environmental clearance and the financial funding and the necessary DPR which was required to be done.
Technically, the environment clearance has to come from the centre, which is run by the same party, which should technically have the same intention. So
we all want it early. And I think the Chief Minister does want it earlier, because I've met him on this issue and definitely his intent is very, very proactive. He's working very, very hard on this project. In fact, he expects that he will win this city's hearts on the basis of the projects being taken off, because he's really put his heart and mind into it.
I mean, he's also Urban Development Minister of Maharashtra, so we would like to see more action come in from the state government, especially as far as Mumbai
So
is
would
concerned.
I.
Yes.
So would everybody. But these large projects are extremely difficult to do. So a combination
be-
of what I'm saying
Yes.
is.
No, I agree. So should they be in the meantime, at least during the monsoons, where we will both accept, now Powai is an exception perhaps, but the rest of the city, if you drive down the western suburbs that are honestly rotting with neglect because they have not received any infrastructure upgrade in the last 10 years, the eastern suburbs have, the western suburbs have not. Maybe in the meantime, a quicker reaction to fix the roads, this is local government, a quicker reaction to fix the roads, maybe the odd and even formula, just to ease what's happening on the roads, because in all fairness, these 5 big projects are going to take a minimum of 6 years, maybe more, to execute. What happens between then, when people still trying to get to work are spending 3 hours on the road every day?
Last week I had some urgent work to go to the suburbs, the western suburbs. And I was at Nariman Point and I Googled and I realized that to reach Borivali would take in peak time 2 hours. I hopped into the Western Railway train and got it. It was packed like a pack of sardines and was horrendous to go through this particular experience, but I did. I found it very convenient to come back by train. It was fairly comfortable because it was the end of the day and it was not so bad, and I kept the driver in South Mumbai to pick me up. But the whole experience was quite horrendous, to say that mass transport where millions of people are traveling, and it's really
not
horrible.
been upgraded,
and
it's unsafe.
I think what is necessary is to get all the ministers to at least travel once a week, if not once a fortnight or once a month, to go through the experience of what the common man is really doing. I think once they do it, they will definitely understand what the problems are. Large number of governance issues have come up, and what is surprising me is that many of the people live in these areas and they're still not able to do it. That I can't understand. So the issue is definitely of governance, as is quite obvious as far as this is concerned. I'm not talking about corruption, I'm talking about governance, where we need to be proactive.
One should start talking about corruption eventually.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't talk about it enough.
I think we are talking on corruption, but it's extremely difficult for me to start saying how we can rectify that situation. It's really, we have tried, and I think we have trying to push it a lot, but it's not getting over yet. I would say that at the higher echelons of government, it has definitely gone away, if not substantially reduced in many parts of government. But at the operational end, at the local level, we still have
There were reports in the papers of the last couple of days of developers in Mumbai who claim to still face threatening and ransoming phone calls from local gangsters and from operators. I mean, in a system where liquidity is already a problem, is that still a problem in the industry? And why haven't we managed to iron it out?
Gangsters are easy to handle. The problem is when the politicians become the extortionists. The problem is when the officers become extortionists. When that part becomes extortion, it's extremely difficult to handle. It's very easy to handle gangsters, because all you got to do is to talk to the people in the crime branch and they really handle it very well. But I think that in fact is better handled today. But how do you handle a politician who's sitting in the seat of power and he becomes an extortionist? Or an officer sitting in the chair of duty and he becomes an extortionist when you need to deal with him every day? That's the problem at the operational level, not the issue of gangsters.
How are you handling it right now?
It's very difficult. I mean, there's no secret about it. It's not that it's unknown territory. And the second part of it, which people are again not talking about it as much, is elections. Elections is a time where collections are taking place tremendously, and what do? I mean, there's a limit put by the election commissioner, and obviously the expenditure done by the politicians is higher. So why are we not talking about that? And there's election every month somewhere in the country.
Should someone come out? I mean, should the industry come out and start naming the people who are demanding?
I think they
the
are
money?
being named one by one. It's not the question of names not coming out. But there's no secret about the names. I think the people know the names better than anyone else. I mean, there is nobody who doesn't know. I mean, it's a question. It's like it's not even a closed secret. It's an open secret about people who do it. I mean, even the rates at which they do it is known. So it's not something. It's an a la carte menu that people know about. There's no secret about it. So do you not know that in elections this happens? Do you not know that it's happening in the industry? Is. I mean, let's not run away with it. We, in fact, find it extremely difficult to handle it when we are selling by full check and we are not able to pay these people.
Now there's this whole other angle of the DGP's notice or circular on filing FIRs against developers, errant developers. Is that another window being opened for possible extortion, for shaking down developers some more, this time by the police?
100%. It's definitely a move for extortion by the police now. And I think the government will find it extremely difficult to allow open policing by both the departments, one by the police and one by the regulator. The government will have to decide that you can't have two windows policing because you'll have double corruption. So I think it would be sensible to leave it to the regulator to handle it, because he's been now given the powers to do so by the authority. This would be extra power given to the police, which is bound to be misused because it's so convenient to misuse it.
Well, we heard that the Maharashtra Urban Development Ministry was re-looking at the circular, but in the meantime the FIRs have already begun. We've had a series being filed over the last...
The police are not going to leave a chance to take full advantage of this measure. Even if it's an interim measure till the regulator gets appointed or not, I'm sure there's going to be a problem. And there'll be a huge competition between the regulator wanting to regulate and the police wanting to use their powers. It's tough, but this is what's happening everywhere, including taxation. So even on the taxation side, each department wants to add taxes. Similarly, as far as power is concerned, everybody wants to take power, and it's simply because it's a method of extortion.
Have you looked at the new development plan, the revised development plan that Mumbai is now open for suggestions and objections? Is this the best version that we could have come up with? Are you disappointed that the suburbs didn't get more FSI?
No, I'm not.
We talked about it a couple of times. You said FSI would be the best way to create housing.
I'm not disappointed about the FSI. I am in fact happy about a couple of things which have been done. The first thing which I'm very delighted about is, for the first time in the history of any development plan post-independence, you have reclaimed 300 acres of land which you will convert into a garden at between Cuff Parade and Nariman Point. This was planned in 1952. And they did the Nariman Point reclamation. They built all the buildings and reclaimed the land, but the garden was never reclaimed. And now in the development plan, you have put a reclamation for a garden which would be like a central park for the thing. The entire geography will change. So I think that's a fantastic revision which has taken place. Second thing which they did was a correction of the FSI which was biased to certain core areas around transportation areas. That has been brought down. So that FSI was brought down, but it was impractical to actually develop those areas because those areas are already fully developed. So they created a base which is wider. So I think that's a positive part of it. The third part of the development plan is the putting of charging for the additional FSI. That is ridiculous. The price
at which
the premium is ridiculous.
But and even that is Mumbai areas, not even suburbs.
No, but it's not correct. See, the one thing is to charge more. You know, the capacity of a city to pay more is always going to be there. But it is not right and it's not just, and it has to be reduced. I understand from the municipal commissioner's view, he says, I'm losing this and I'm losing Octra and I'm doing this, so I have to collect some money from somewhere. So this is a nice way to collect it, and anyway builders should be squeezed as far as the money is concerned, so why not we do it? So I don't see that as a problem. I understand the municipal commissioner, but I don't understand how this has to be done. I think when this matter goes to government, this needs to be re-looked at. And if you must see that the rationalization of these costs and taxes has to be rational. There was a time in India where we used to pay 98% tax and no tax was ever collected. Today, when we have 35-40% tax, people pay tax. Substantial large number of people pay their tax correctly. But when it was 98%, nobody paid the tax correctly. So the situation is, you rationalize the tax, you'll get higher collection. This way, you skew the whole city.
So I'm going to come back to the fact that every conversation you and I have had in the past, you've talked about the fact that going particularly upwards with FSI is the way to create housing in a city like Mumbai, is the way to make housing affordable.
Yes.
And we still have not managed to do that. And this is a plan that we will now, work with for the next 20 years. Yes. While, from what I understand, the BMC is looking at splitting it into smaller 5-year chunks. But Have we failed again?
See, the answer which the commissioner has, which he has put in the development plan, is to take the salt pan lands and treat it as zero value lands as far as that is concerned, because earlier there was no FSI for it. So today he's putting those lands into operation. Once he does that, he can put in 5 lakh houses can be built in the next 5 to 6 years. And if he takes up that housing, a huge amount of shortage will be taking place, will be covered by such area development, one. Number two, he expects that the SRA also will start up again properly, and those will be also rehoused. So a combination of idea for the poorest of poor to enter into salt pan lands in this.
The greenfield poorest of poor projects never actually, turn out to be what they were meant to be. Even our Dharavi redevelopment has no bidder today. Given the size of the project, the potential of the location, nobody wants to partner with the government. Nobody wants to take on this challenge. Somehow, intention doesn't translate to action on the ground.
Yes, I agree with you. Because it has not succeeded, we have to make plans for the future. Now, the answer was only SRA would answer the problem of the poor. Our suggestion was it's not the only answer, and you need to open up new areas in Mumbai. That's why the salt pan lands have been taken up. Now, they said, and activists have said that you shouldn't take up salt pan land. But then you don't have enough lands which are available, which would be available fast enough. So there's a conflict between the environmental...
The answer of FSI might have been useful.
The answer, that's exactly that's an issue. But what happens is we need to fix something in the next 5 years. The government should not and cannot wait for next 25 years to produce solution. That is the reason why you needed to take up 2,000 acres of open lands which are available to you today, and that you need to do it. The sea is open, so you don't need to acquire. So you acquire that land and take it and from the sea and build it. Most of the countries in the world have done it. Hong Kong, Dubai, all these countries have done it.
And so, like you pointed out, while the government is making provisions here for the poorest of the poor, there is a gap between what's being made available and the poorest of the poor, which is the middle income or the lower middle income that nobody's building for.
That's worrying me. And I'm hoping that, again, government will rationalize the taxes and all these other costs which are there, so that you also take care of the middle class for the housing segment, because otherwise you're pushing them into the poorer segment as far as the affordability of housing is concerned. And the environment which you're creating is such that I can't afford a house. And the second part of the story is we need to work enough on rental housing, because that's an best area to create affordability. So even if my house is expensive, when I give it on rent, it's always taken at a price which a person can do it. That's why the returns on rental today are 2 or 3%. Because your price being high and the affordability of rent being lower, you automatically get rationalization. So we need to encourage rental housing to do, and which I think is likely to happen.
All right, Mr. Hiranandani, I've run out of time, but thank you so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.